Chris Young has Rangers fans feeling like Charlie Brown on a Halloween. Because finally, at the big league level, we got a rock.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into Kumar Rocker making his MLB debut, how the heck the Rangers are going to fit 7 starting pitchers into the rotation, and if Rocker is actually ready for this opportunity. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now on Sunday, Rangers GM Chris Young told the media that he would not rule out the possibility of Kumar Rocker making his MLB debut this season. This was just 2 days after Bruce Bochy said that Kumar Rocker would not make his MLB debut this season. That was on Friday. Kumar Rocker had his second AAA start on Friday night. The Rangers thought about it some more. And then 3 days later, after that second AAA start, the Rangers officially announced that Kumar Rocker will be headed up to the big leagues to make his MLB debut on Thursday in Seattle against the Mariners. Welcome to the freaking show, Kumar Rocker, big leaguer. He did it, y'all. He did it. He is going to be a big leaguer on Thursday. Finally, it is happening. I have been shouting it from the rooftops for several weeks, just a few weeks ahead of it actually happening, that Rocker was ready for this. He's been ready for this. Basically, from the second that he got back from Tommy John surgery, the second that he stepped onto a mound in AA Frisco, he has been just absolutely obliterating hitters. I mean, a .46 ERA in 19 2/3 innings in AA, a 1.80 ERA in 10 innings in AAA, with 18 strikeouts to just 2 earned runs, 1 homer, which did come in a very homer-friendly ballpark in Las Vegas, Nevada. But still, a great start to his, middle chapter, whatever, of his pro career, whatever this is, the first full-ish season of his professional career has been nothing short of sensational. The guy has been just absolutely unhittable. He has not just knocked his way to the big leagues. He's not knocking on the door. He busted that thing in, broke the door frame, kicked it down with those big, strong legs of his, and says, I'm here. I'm one of your best pitchers already. Put me in the gosh darn big leagues. I don't care about the implications of the 40-man and not having to put somebody on there and protect yada, yada, yada. It does not matter. I am ready right now, and any more starts that you have me throwing in AAA will be wasted on those poor hitters that I'm going to make look absolutely stupid. Now, those were not his direct words. That is not something that Kumar Rocker would ever say. But with his performance, he has shown that he has been ready for the big leagues. This is a great thing for Rangers fans, a great thing to just get him in the big leagues. I think he'll probably have around maybe 3, at I think most 4 starts at the big league level this year. The Rangers have 2 more off days, They're just coming off of 1 off day. The Rangers have, I believe, 18 more games. So they will have a 6-game road trip on the West Coast, or I guess desert, then West Coast. 4 games in Seattle after these 2 with the Diamondbacks, day off. 6-game homestand, 3 against the Blue Jays, 3 against the Mariners, then a day off, and then their final road trip of the season, 3 games in Oakland, 3 games in Anaheim to finish out their regular season. And the thing about the timing of this with Rocker, it's only happening now because the Rangers are out of it. If the Rangers had forced their way into the conversation, if the Rangers were anywhere near it, anywhere near the postseason picture at even the later stages of August, I don't think that Rocker would have taken this long to come up, because he's probably been one of their best options to have in the rotation for 3 weeks now or so. And because he is making his season debut on the big league roster on September 12th, he will not be eligible for the postseason, though the Rangers are almost certainly not making it there. And there is also the innings limits to consider. Rocker is coming off Tommy John surgery. He has pitched 36 2/3 innings so far this year. 19 2/3 of those innings have been in 5 starts in Frisco. 10 of those innings have been in the 2 starts in AAA Round Rock, or with AAA Round Rock. He also had 7 innings of rehab assignment in the Arizona Complex League, with 3 different games that he was pitching in there, which was his rehab assignment. So the Rangers are targeting about 50 innings for him. If he has about 5 innings per start, that would put him at 51 2/3 innings. Anywhere within that 5-inning mark of cushion on either side of the 50 innings limit, so no more than 55, no fewer than 45 innings this year is kind of where they are targeting for him. But this is a great moment for the Rangers and for Rangers pitching development. I mean, you will have 3 homegrown starters in your rotation, the effectiveness of which varies from starter to starter, but the Rangers did it. They've got 3 homegrown starters in the rotation. Guys who are capable big league starters. The jury's still out. Pretty confident in Kumar Rocker being a competent big league starting pitcher. And I feel the same way, even more so actually, about Cody Bradford. Bradford has been phenomenal this year. And as of right now, this week, this is what the rotation is shaping up to look like. You got Nathan Eovaldi on Tuesday, Cody Bradford on Wednesday. Thursday is Rocker Day. Friday is probably when Jacob deGrom will make his season debut at the big league level. Then you have 3 more spots in that rotation to split between Jack Leiter, Max Scherzer, and Andrew Heaney, because yes, Max Scherzer is coming back this season. He is a guy who is fighting tooth and nail to get back on the mound to show, hey, I'm healthy. I can keep doing this. I want to keep doing this. I mean, if you're a 40-year-old pitching in a knockoff, whatever kind of weird jersey in AAA in the middle of September, trying to fight back to get 1 to maybe 3 more starts at the big league level this year. I mean, you can never question Max Scherzer's desire, but having 7 guys in a rotation, even with expanded rosters, is a little difficult to fit in. But the biggest news is still about Rocker, the developments that he has made this year, the progress that he has made this year, the leaps and bounds by which he has gotten better, gotten back to the kind of prospect that the Rangers thought they could have when they drafted him at 3rd overall, even despite paying him lower than slot value. That is part of the reason why the Rangers drafted him at 3rd overall. I mean, the MLB draft is more of a puzzle than a straight-up talent draft like the other ones. You have the bonus pools, and you got to be smart about how you do that. Rangers thought, hey, this is probably one of the last times we'll be picking this high in the draft, hopefully for the foreseeable future. So they took 2 big old swings, one on Kumar Rocker, one on Brock Porter. The Brock Porter one is seeming to not really work out right now. I'm not going to write the kid off because he's 20, 21 years old, and there's still plenty of time for him to figure it out. But you're also hoping that Kumar Rocker could turn into at least serviceable starting pitcher, and he's blown that out of the water of serviceable starting pitcher being the floor. His ceiling is what it always was, a potential future homegrown ace. something the Rangers have not had in many, many moons, and something that hopefully they will have for years and years to come. But for the right now, what the heck is this rotation going to look like? Who is going to be the odd man out? How the heck are the Rangers going to manage 7 starting pitchers in rotation? We'll look at that and a hypothetical of what would have happened with Kumar Rocker's development had he not had Tommy John surgery last year. Talk about that right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by Gametime. Getting tickets to your favorite events should not be difficult. It should not be a hassle. And when you download Gametime, it's not. It is the easiest and best way to get tickets. Gametime is the best app for getting tickets, last-minute deals, all kinds of great stuff. And Gametime now has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've got all kinds of different great features like seat views. You can get a panoramic view from your seat so you know exactly what it looks like before you show up. And Gametime's also got the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% the difference. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. Tonight, the Rangers take on the Diamondbacks, 8:40 p.m. Central Time, first pitch. Nate Eovaldi versus Zach Gowen. You can catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, in order for Kumar Rocker to make it up to the big league level, the Rangers will have to add him to the 40-man roster. There are some roster spots, I believe, that will be up for grabs right now. I think the easiest way to make that happen is to move Tyler Mahle from the 15-day IL to the 60-day IL. Mahle has already been declared out for the rest of this season. So it is just a minor housekeeping note as to moving him to the 60-day in order to free up that 40-man spot. But the Rangers are also going to have to make another 40-man roster spot for Jacob deGrom when he comes off the 60-day IL. That one will be a little bit more tricky, although I think it will end up being a case of just moving one of the pitchers who is injured on the 15-day IL and saying, all right, your season is done, and moving them to the 60-day IL. The options for that are, well, Josh Sborz is on the 15-day IL. Not sure exactly when he's coming back. Jacob Latz has been rehabbing for a minute. He is still on the 15-day IL. I believe he is the one who is scheduled to be, or I guess available to be activated off the IL most recently, or I guess quickest of the rest of these guys. And then Grant Anderson was just placed on the 15-day IL a few days ago. He will be eligible to come off the 21st. The Ranger will have 6 games left between now and, or I guess between the 21st when he is eligible to be reinstated and the end of this season. So maybe the Rangers will just go ahead and do that. Otherwise, they're going to have to cut bait with somebody, probably a pitcher is going to be the move. There will be some 40-man roster spots that open up when some of these guys become free agents at the end of this year, because you can't just keep all of your hurt pitchers on the 60-day IL for the entire offseason. The Rangers will have to make some moves of protecting certain people who will become eligible for the Rule 5 draft, so some spots will have to be cleared. Of the guys who are, on the 40-man roster that I don't think are going to stay all that much longer, I think Chase Anderson is probably the most obvious pick. I mean, the Rangers have some other options there if they are wanting to go ahead and cut bait with Sam Huff. I don't see him surviving another winter on the Rangers 40-man roster because he's out of options next year. And with how bad Andrew Kisner was this year, the fact that Sam Huff couldn't even really get a sniff of even semi-regular playing time at the big league level, I think that kind of tells you exactly how the Rangers are feeling about him. If the Rangers wanted to say that that Corey Seager's year is done and put him on the 60-day IL, move him off the 10-day IL to the 60-day, that could be another way that they open up a roster spot. But other than that, not a whole lot of options there for position players to open up 40-man roster spots. I think that Huff is the most obvious option of those. Sandro Fabian being added to the 40-man was kind of a little bit of a surprise. He's kind of profiled as a mediocre AAA hitter, but the Rangers said, hey, let's see if you got anything, and glad to see him make his MLB debut. Has not gotten his first MLB hit just yet. I'm sure he will get a chance to do that, hopefully between now and the end of the year. But we'll see exactly what's going on with all of that between now and the end of the season. But the Rangers are at 7 men for their rotation right now. It goes a little bit something like this: Nate Eovaldi, Cody Bradford, Kumar Rocker, Jacob deGrom, Jack Leiter, Max Scherzer, and Andrew Heaney. Now, the Rangers have 6-day stretches. They have 3 different 6-game stretches with off days in between at this point, which means if you go with just the 6-man rotation, then you can go with everybody pitching once a week. Everyone has 3 starts between now and the end of the season, but there's going to be an odd man out. And I think the Rangers might go with all 7 of these guys as starting pitchers between now and the end of the season. Obviously, the priority, for me at least, and I think probably for the Rangers, is making sure that these young guys keep getting starts. Make sure you keep figuring out what you have in Jack Leiter and Cody Bradford, and now in Kumar Rocker. Make sure that you get as many looks at those guys as possible, while with Rocker still being delicate with his pitch count and his innings limit and things like that. But for the other guys, I mean, Bradford's had a phenomenal breakout season. Unfortunately, it's been marred a little bit by injuries. Not something that I think is going to be recurring, hopefully. Hopefully he does not have stress fractures in his ribs moving forward. But you never know with pitchers. It is always a matter of, can you keep guys healthy? But that is priority number 1 for me, is getting Rocker, getting Leiter, and getting Bradford as many starts between now and the end of the season in a regular rotation, because you're going to need those guys in a big way next year. Now, the next priority is getting Jacob deGrom some starts, getting Jacob deGrom fully built up, because he is your ace. He is the guy you are paying the most money per year, and he is a singular one-of-one talent, the best pitcher in baseball when healthy. So getting him to be fully healthy by the end of the season, giving him a fully healthy offseason, that is an incredibly important thing. And even though the Rangers are out of it, it does not matter. They have very big aspirations for next year. And if they're going to achieve those aspirations, you would like to get more than 6 starts and 30 innings out of your ace, Jacob deGrom. I'm thinking they will next year. Hoping they will. And then your other priorities is just with the other starting pitchers, the other 3, they're not quite the odd man out, but almost there. But Nathan Eovaldi and Andrew Heaney have done nothing to not have a rotation spot between now and the end of the season. Eovaldi, you especially want to keep happy and healthy, because he's got a $20 million player option that if he gets 7 innings between now and the end of the season, which he might just go ahead and knock that thing out tonight in Arizona and hit the 300 inning pitch marked in the regular season between last season and this season to trigger the $20 million vesting player option, which again, we will see if he decides to just go ahead and take that or go to free agency, and the Rangers have to try and bring him back for probably more than $20 million a year. But you want to keep those relationships good. You want to keep Eovaldi there and happy. And also, part of the reason of calling up Kumar Rocker between now and the end of the season is just spending some time with Nate Eovaldi. I mean, the leadership aspect of Eovaldi has been just about as big as everything else. I mean, Eovaldi's tip early on in the season for Kirby Yates about how to throw his splitter, Yates gives him a lot of credit for his resurgence this year of just, he had one little tip of just how to fix things, how to, make my slider or my splitter just that much better. And Yates is having, not his best season of his career, but darn close. And that's hard to do after, the last 4 years that he's had. Rocker or Eovaldi has had that kind of impact on basically every pitcher on the staff. And so in the sad case that Eovaldi doesn't return next year, which I think is a possibility, hopefully not a likelihood, but definitely a very real possibility, Rocker wouldn't get to spend time with Eovaldi on the same staff. And so getting these 3 weeks of just getting acclimated to the big leagues, getting Eovaldi there around him, impacting him, teaching him what it means to be a starter at the big league level. That is no small thing, and I definitely think it's part of the reason why Kumar Rocker is coming up. But there's not just one reason for that. And what is this actually going to look like if they do split this into all 7 guys staying in the rotation? I've got an idea about what that looks like. We'll talk about that, and if Kumar Rocker is really ready or the Rangers are just pushing it a little bit too fast. Right after this word from our sponsors. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we've got something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Head over to FanDuel.com to check out some of the odds they've got. The Rangers winning the World Series. They are tied for the worst odds amongst teams that are still listed, with the Rays, Cardinals, Cubs, and Tigers at plus 50,000. Those are some long odds for sure. If you want to look at division winners right now, the Rangers are not even listed amongst the AL West possible division winners. They are quite a bit out of it. Right now, the Astros are the favorites at plus 3,000 or minus 3,000. The Mariners at plus 1,300. So go visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Now, the Rangers have 7 starting pitchers, or by Saturday probably, they will have 7 capable starting pitchers to put into 5 spots, or maybe 6 spots in a rotation. And this is how I think they do it. Because right now, Max Scherzer is not built up to a full starter's workload. Jacob deGrom is about there. Rocker is, well, he's been so gosh darn efficient that he's only been throwing around 55 to 70 pitches in his starts, but he's been using that to go through 5 innings. And that's probably about where he'll be limited to. I don't see a scenario where he throws more than 70, 75 pitches in really any start between now and the end of the season. So you could piggyback tandem Rocker, but I think he's more built up than Max Scherzer is at this point. Scherzer is, if this were a regular season, if there were more time left, I don't think Scherzer would be coming right back up. I think he'd have probably one more rehab start, because the last start he just threw 2 innings in AAA. So I think that a piggyback start makes the most sense with Scherzer. As to who ends up doing that, I'm not sure if it's more likely to have it be Andrew Heaney or Jack Leiter, because Leiter hasn't really consistently come out of the bullpen at all in his career. Heaney's done that a little bit more. Heaney is a free agent at the end of this year. So if there is an odd man out, not that Heaney has pitched badly or deserves to be relegated to the bullpen, but I think that's probably where I would go if it were me. Eovaldi has done nothing to not earn that start. Again, like I said, you need to keep him happy and hopes of bringing him back. Scherzer, it's hard to say that's frustrating that, one of the all-time greats wants to come back and pitch, but at this time it's not super helpful for the Rangers in their long-term plans. But he's a Hall of Famer. He helped you win a World Series. You owe him that if he's ready to start him. So I don't think you can just say, sorry, Max, we're shutting you down for the year. Because we all know how tenacious Max Scherzer is, and he would make that everybody's problem for the next 3 weeks to the point where they would regret it. But I think that's probably what it's going to look like, is Heaney and Scherzer doing piggyback starts probably on Sunday, keep Jack Leiter starting on Saturdays. Everybody will have their day in the week for the last 3 weeks of the season, and I think that's about where this will stack up from now until the end of the year. But I want to look at, for a second, hypothetically, what it would have looked like if Kumar Rocker didn't have Tommy John surgery last year. Well, before Tommy John surgery, I didn't see his rework delivery all that much when he was with the Down East, or the Hickory Crawdads, excuse me. I didn't really see how much of his delivery was reworked to where he was, throwing it more of that kind of 3/4 slot, looking a little bit in his windup like Nolan Ryan. He's not Nolan Ryan. Don't get me wrong. I didn't say that. Don't expect him to be Nolan Ryan. He doesn't walk as many guys as Nolan, and I don't think he's going to have quite as many career strikeouts or no-hitters. That is not a knock on Kumar Rocker, but unless he's pitching until he's 60, it will be difficult to do in modern MLB conditions. But the delivery has looked so different, and if you go back to remembering 2023 and the 2023 Texas Rangers, they had quite a few starting pitchers, but they had a big problem in their bullpen. And I think had Kumar Rocker been healthy all season, he had 6 starts in High A Hickory. By that point, before he had Tommy John surgery, he was going to be promoted to Double A Frisco. And if he kept pitching like that, if he kept pitching that well and overmatching hitters, and if he looked anything like what he looked like now, he might have cracked that big league rotation by like August or something last year. Or maybe the Rangers would have just said, this is a risky player. There's always risk with the pitchers, but we need help in our bullpen very desperately to win right now. And he could have ended up in the bullpen. And I think that might have stunted his growth in general. It would have been harder to transition him back to a starting pitcher role if he had moved to the bullpen. Now, all of that is very hypothetical. It's very difficult to say. And looking back, Tommy John surgery is never a good thing. But I think for Kumar Rocker, he has made the most of that opportunity to reset, to, refocus himself, to really work on those big changes that the Rangers wanted. Because we saw him throwing in the Arizona Fall League the first time as a Texas Rangers pitching prospect. The delivery was scary. It was not good. It was not what he was throwing like in college. He was putting a lot of stress on his shoulder. Grant and I talked about it a whole lot, and then not very much at all, because we just didn't want to think about it because it was so scary that he was throwing so much with his shoulder. And with a guy who had already had shoulder surgery, had already had knee surgery, and then a few months later would end up having elbow surgery, putting that much kind of pressure on his shoulder was scary. But Rocker talks a lot about the rehab staff, the staff in Arizona that worked with him on everything from his mental makeup to his mechanics to everything. I mean, he didn't talk that much in detail when he was talking with the press after his final Double A start, which we didn't know at the time was his final Double A start, but he doesn't talk about it much. But we can see that the delivery is much different, and it's repeatable, it's clean. He looks very, very confident in himself, and the stuff has been good enough to get big leaguers out basically since he got to Double A. I thought it the first time I saw him. I really thought the second time I saw him. I've talked to a lot of different people who are much, much smarter than me, who all said, and I asked them, like, am I crazy for thinking after watching him for 2 starts that he could get a lot of big leaguers out right now? And the consensus was yes. Very much, yes, he can. You're not crazy. I mean, you're a little crazy, but not for this. And this is just very vindicating that he is getting these starts to get acclimated to the big leagues. Not that I think he particularly needs it. I think he'd be plenty confident just coming into the rotation out of camp next year, but getting this taste, I think, will be helpful. And I get the trepidation. I get thinking, okay, this is just all happening so freaking fast. And I've talked about it many times on this show. I've said it probably a dozen times over the last maybe even month that right now, the difference between AAA and the big leagues is as big as it's been in the last 10 years that I've been doing this. And he has 10 AAA innings. 10. Now, they're 10 pretty remarkable AAA innings, but it's still 10 AAA innings. But the stuff with him is what it is. It's going to play at all the different levels. No matter what types of hitters he's seeing, I think they will be good enough that we might finally see his cutter, because he's a 5-pitch guy now. He's got the 4-seam fastball, which averages at 98 miles an hour. The profile on it, the advanced numbers of the intentional vertical break, the peripherals and stuff on it aren't as pretty, but it's good enough to play about like a 98 mile an hour fastball, not in the not very much movement kind of zone of, oh, you got velocity, but it's in a straight arrow, so it doesn't matter. He's also got the sinker that he can command at around the same velocity bend. That one I think is a little bit better than the four-seamer. He's also got a changeup that has shown a lot of promise, a cutter that we haven't seen before. And oh yeah, the freaking curveball that has a crazy whiff rate in AAA. I mean, his last start in AAA, it's StatCast will call it a slider. Other people will call it a slider. Don't listen to them. It's not a slider. According to Kumar himself, he does not have multiple breaking balls. He has just the one. He grips like a curveball, always has, throws it pretty hard. But he got 17 swings on that curveball in his final AAA start. And 12 of those swings were swings and misses. So 71% of the swings they took at that curveball were swings and misses. 3 of those were fouled off, and only 2 of those were put in play. And more than half of those pitches were out of the zone. I mean, the guy's curveball is rightly called a death ball, a kind of reminiscent of Monty's curveball in the playoffs. Maybe even more effective. But long story short, this guy is ready. The stuff is there, and there is reason for hope. There is a lot of reason for hope in this guy with his ceiling as a number 1 starting pitcher. That is not something I have ever said about a Texas Rangers pitching prospect. That is not something that people in general have been saying about any Rangers pitching prospect in at least the 15 years or so that I've been paying attention to this. He's getting logical, level-headed people with years of ingrained pessimism about Rangers pitching prospect development. I should say, well-earned pessimism about Rangers pitching prospect development. They've got people like that out of their minds gushing about this guy and saying, who the heck am I believing in a Texas Rangers pitching prospect? Myself included. But, of course, there's reason for fear. Of course, there's reasons for saying, well, you know, he's just going to be like David Clyde or blah, 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 or just not wanting to get your hopes up on a Rangers pitching prospect. I get that. There's a reason, there's a phrase, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. His injury history could fill a very large three-ring binder. But at this point, it's to a lesser extent like Jacob deGrom. The injury history isn't quite as scary. He's not quite as old as Jacob deGrom. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that Kumar Rocker is just going to pitch 6 starts next year. But with any pitcher in baseball now, especially when you throw that hard, you got that nastiest stuff, and you have that injury history, at some point you kind of feel like there's a finite number of bullets in the chamber. There's only a finite number of pitches before the ticking time bomb that is any pitcher's throwing arm goes off, and there's another Tommy John or whatever kind of injury. So you might as well spend those bullets at the big league level, and you might as well spend those bullets in maybe the most pitcher-friendly park against a very pitcher-friendly lineup that he will be facing in the Mariners. They've shown a little bit of life the last couple of weeks. Still very much not a super-duper threatening offense. Not quite White Sox levels of a competent to make your MLB debut against, but still, I am very excited for this Rocker debut. I think he is more than ready. And yeah, we may have been burned before. Yeah, we may eventually be burned again. But just sit back and enjoy Kumar Rocker making his big league debut, because I promise it's way more fun than just worrying about the what ifs. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.